One day in 2012, a Mormon mother and grandmother from California named Deanne Stidham wanted to help out her daughter and sewed her a skirt. She had always loved fashion and was even known as the dress lady by people in her community because she had been hosting dress parties and selling wholesale dresses around the tri-state area for decades. It was that day, though, that sparked in Deanne the idea to turn her passion for fashion into a profitable business. She began creating clothing out of her home and recruiting her large Mormon family to help out, including her twin sister Diane, with whom she had had a joint wedding where Deanne and Diane had married a pair of cousins during the same wedding ceremony. All of these people in her family helped her to grow from a living room sewing business into one of the most notorious MLMs to ever exist. Today, we're going to be uncovering the weird, wacky world of multi-level marketing and the regulations meant to control them, or, you know, the lack thereof. Buckle up, Buttercup. First, a quick thanks to my partner on today's video. You know her, Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is a virtual private network which makes all of your internet traffic travel through a protected, encrypted tunnel. This way, it protects you from spying, public Wi-Fi dangers, and hides your IP address. Atlas VPN protects you from pop-up ads, malware, and other spooky things on the internet. It also allows you to surf the web from anywhere in the world. All of your streaming services like Netflix, HBO, etc., they all have geo restrictions because of licensing rights. But using Atlas VPN, you can surf the internet as though you are in any country throughout the world. So you can access these streaming services in other geographic locations that you otherwise wouldn't normally have access to. You want to see something on the Australian version of Netflix? Now you can with Atlas VPN. I also love to use it because I'm a person on the internet and I understand the importance of protecting myself while I'm online. Plus, I'm constantly creeped out by targeted ads for things that I've been Googling or talking about with my friends. Get the heck out of my head. Atlas VPN protects you across multiple, unlimited devices, so that's protection for all. And with Atlas VPN, you can get the best VPN deal on the market. Right now, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount, meaning you can get a 3-year subscription to Atlas VPN for $1.99 a month, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's an 82% discount just for you. You can get your deal by clicking on the link in the description down below. Thanks, Atlas VPN. All right, let's start with what is an MLM, okay? Multi-level marketing is actually just a marketing strategy employed by a direct sales company. A direct sales company is one that sells products directly to consumers, as opposed to selling the products on store shelves, for example. The multi-level marketing is employed by these companies because, frankly, it saves them a lot of money on the marketing side of things. What happens is one person buys product and then sells that product to recoup the costs and earn a profit. And the more they sell, the more profit they earn. In order to increase the return, they're encouraged to recruit their own sales team to work under them, thereby earning a commission, not only based on what they're selling, but also based on what the people below them are selling. And then those people can go and hire their own people, and so on. Multi-level. Get it? Okay. The OG MLM is probably the cosmetic company Avon. Ever heard of Avon, ladies?
I sell Avon, and I can do great things for your looks.
The company has been around since the late 1800s, and for most of its history, it relied upon door-to-door salespeople, also known as Avon ladies. Over the last couple decades, however, Avon has switched its business model and now operates as an MLM. So Avon ladies now have their own team of other Avon ladies, and so on forever. The business model has experienced an explosion of growth over the last 20 years, and it's been able to grow largely by feeding off the promise of huge earnings, often made to people like stay-at-home moms and people with low incomes, for whom the promise of high incomes for less work is too enticing to resist. And of course, this makes sense, especially for people who have been fed the dream of capitalism their entire lives. The idea that you're one good idea away from becoming a millionaire has enticed people the world over for over a century at this point, and it leads people to make all sorts of decisions, good and bad, with their money and careers. The reality, unfortunately, is that the vast majority of people are actually one accident or bout of bad luck away from homelessness or financial ruin. And yet the carrot on the stick of potential wealth is enough to have us doing some pretty stupid shit, like investing thousands of dollars into hideous leggings that we then have to force upon all our friends. But we'll get to LuLaRoe in a bit. So what's the difference between an MLM and a pyramid scheme? MLMs are technically legal, and pyramid schemes are not. The main difference is that pyramid schemes are a fraudulent marketing scheme wherein the people being recruited to sell the products aren't actually earning profit from the products themselves, but instead make their income mostly or solely from the recruitment of other people into the scheme. This can come either in the form of a bonus paid for each recruit or money earned off the sales or recruitment done by others. That's not to say that MLMs can't pay a bonus for people who recruit others others. The main difference lies in whether that's the only or main way that people can earn a profit in the business. States have their own individual laws prohibiting pyramid schemes. For example, Washington State's Anti-Pyramid Promotional Schemes Act defines a pyramid scheme as any plan or operation in which a person gives consideration for the right or opportunity to receive compensation that's derived primarily from the recruitment of other persons as participants in the plan or operation, rather than from the bona fide sale of goods, services, or intangible property to a person or by persons to others. Federally, the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, is responsible for regulating businesses, including MLMs. Section 5 of the FTC Act regulates against unlawful compensation structures. If the FTC thinks that an MLM might be operating as an illegal pyramid scheme, they'll open up an investigation into the company to see if they can find any evidence that the payment structure is illegal. This could include interviewing employees, collecting public information, and subpoenaing the companies for information. However, when I started digging, I discovered that the FTC rarely ever goes that far. Despite how prevalent MLMs have become, I learned that the FTC has only filed approximately 24 cases against MLMs in the past 40 years. How is it possible that a business structure that's so ridiculous that it's become the butt of every joke about the girls you went to high school with has experienced apparently very little regulatory oversight? It turns out that this is due in part to the fact that MLMs are excluded from regulation under the FTC's Business Opportunity Rule. This rule usually requires that any claims that businesses make as to the amount of money that potential employees or contractors can earn must be backed up by actual evidence. It also requires businesses to disclose to potential workers any lawsuits that they may be involved with. This rule was created to protect freelance and gig workers from getting involved in fraudulent schemes. And yet somehow, when this rule was passed a decade ago, MLMs were excluded from it. Why? Well, lobbying. Remember we talked about this recently? Those with money and lobbying power are the ones who get their way in DC. Same goes for MLMs. Turns out there's this business association called the Direct Selling Association, and it has a caucus in Congress made up of over 40 congressional members, and they hold events like luncheons where they tout the importance of direct selling for women's entrepreneurship, which is frankly a fucking insult both to women as entrepreneurs and as humans with brain cells. And these luncheons are sponsored by a host of MLMs, including some that have been under FTC scrutiny for their practices. So despite this rule that requires most businesses to be very transparent when offering jobs to potential salespeople, MLMs got a tiny little carve-out, likely because of their lobbying power in Washington. However, the Business Opportunity Rule is supposedly getting reviewed and amended sometime in the next year, and many people are pushing for MLMs to finally be included in FTC regulations, requiring businesses to disclose this information to potential workers before they join. But the Direct Selling Association caucus is very alive and well, so we'll see about that. Okay, so what's the difference between a pyramid scheme and a Ponzi scheme? Now that we know that a pyramid scheme is a fraudulent marketing scheme, that may make you wonder, I've heard of other fraudulent businesses like Ponzi schemes. What's the difference? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's true that a Ponzi scheme is also a fraudulent marketing scheme. The difference is in the recruitment element. Where pyramid schemes require victims to be involved in the recruitment of others in order to make money, a Ponzi scheme is simply a means of marketing that requires victims to make an investment in the business with the promise of income or returns at a later date. Typically, the perpetrator of a Ponzi scheme will take money from an investor, promising better than average returns on their investment, and then use that money to pay off other investors that they've made the same promise to. So they're not actually investing the money and making money for their customers, they're just using other customers' money to pretend that they are. As you can guess, these schemes invariably fall apart because it will snowball and catch up with the person eventually. But it's usually one person or a group of people acting together to perpetrate this scheme against victims, whereas a pyramid scheme has victims recruiting other victims in a self-perpetuating machine where the only way to actually make money is by recruiting more people, not through the legitimate sale of goods. So when does an MLM become a pyramid scheme? If you've been listening until now, you might be wondering, I'm still unclear about the distinction between an MLM and a pyramid scheme. Like, most MLMs provide some sort of incentive to recruit more salespeople, and many people never make any profits on the products that they invest in for an MLM. In fact, the Consumer Awareness Institute has found that 99% of people who participate in MLMs, even the lawful ones, lose money. So if you're still confused what the difference is, yeah, So is everyone else. The main difference appears to be the way in which a company markets itself. Is it overtly saying to its salespeople, you must recruit to make money? Or is it saying you can make money, but also will be rewarded and more successful if you also recruit people? And the subtlety of the distinction is what allows MLMs to exist in a kind of gray area that may be vaguely exploitative, but not in a legally actionable way. But that can quickly slip into pyramid scheme territory, which can then go undetected for a long time. Enter 𝗬𝗓𝗏. You've all probably already heard of 𝗬𝗓𝗏, the MLM that has somehow built an entire business around selling truly hideous leggings and other clothing, and was subject of the popular docuseries 𝗬𝗓𝗏. If you have purchased 𝗬𝗓𝗏 clothing and you are like a diehard fan or were at one point, can you comment below and tell me why? Because it's truly lost on me. I was flipping through their website and it is, wow. It's just an amalgamation of patterns on cheap looking jersey fabric made into like skirts and tops and dresses and leggings. What's the draw? Comment below. Anyway, but what really happened with 𝗬𝗓𝗏? How did it go from MLM to facing a Washington state lawsuit accusing it of being a pyramid scheme? Well, again, I'm so glad you asked. Let me explain. 𝗬𝗓𝗏 was founded by 𝗑𝗓𝗏 𝗬𝗏𝗏 in 2012, and her big Mormon family pitched in to get the company off the ground. By 5 years later, in 2017, the company was generating $2.7 billion and had over 60,000 consultants, which is what they call their salespeople. And those consultants would have their own consultants under them, and the way the payment structure was set up, the consultants would only make money if the people under them purchased inventory. So they would push their people to keep buying and buying, even if they weren't actually selling much product. Yeah, their income didn't come from their recruits' actual sales numbers, it came from how much the recruits themselves bought. And this is problematic because, again, the difference between a quote-unquote legitimate MLM and a pyramid scheme is that to be legal, the salespeople in the MLM have to be deriving their income from the actual sale of products to actual customers outside the organization, not to other salespeople within the pyramid. Got it? And then the company, 𝗬𝗓𝗏, began to implode as more and more consultants were realizing that the setup required them to buy more and more quantity in order to get the styles that people actually wanted to buy, because they couldn't control what exactly they got in each order, so they were often stuck with really ugly shit, and they couldn't sell it. And then the quality of the garments themselves began to decline, with some people reporting that they were receiving moldy clothing, and that the clothes were tearing apart like wet toilet paper. Woof. This was largely due to the fact that 𝗬𝗓𝗏 had very inexplicably exploded in popularity in a very short time. And it was run by a family of people who were dramatically underqualified to be doing what they were doing, which is a general trend in family-owned businesses. If you've ever worked for a family-owned business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's always one son or nephew with a corner office, and everyone's like, what do you do here? Okay, so 𝗬𝗓𝗏 was bursting at the seams, get it, and being held by a leadership team created solely by nepotism. Then the class action lawsuits began pouring in from private individuals claiming that 𝗬𝗓𝗏 was operating a pyramid scheme and defrauding people of their money. Many of the consultants had to declare bankruptcy after going into tens of thousands of dollars of debt, buying inventory, and working 60-hour weeks just to barely break even. And you might be wondering, like, how did these people, mostly women, get into such financial trouble? Didn't they see after a month or two that the net income just didn't make sense? And I think the answer lies in the fact that 𝗬𝗓𝗏 really appealed to women who were stay-at-home moms, trying to make some side income to pay off debts that they already had. Many of them were ambitious but didn't have formal business training. And 𝗬𝗓𝗏 really touted this idea that you could be making tens of thousands of dollars a month if you just work hard enough. So these consultants would work even harder, thinking that it was something they were doing wrong and not a fundamentally flawed business structure, which is frankly a microcosm of capitalism if you think about it. You're poor because you don't work hard enough. Poor people are lazy. It's definitely not a flaw in the system. My God, is capitalism a pyramid scheme? Also, many of these consultants came from a culture like Mormonism, where women were taught to stay home and be wives. Like, literally, the founder, Deanne's mom, wrote a book called The Secret Power of Femininity, which instructs women to, among other things, practice saying, "I'm just a helpless woman at the mercy of you big, strong men." in order to catch a guy. And one woman interviewed for this 10,000-word BuzzFeed article from 2020 all about 𝗬𝗏, who was one of the top consultants for 𝗬𝗏 before getting disillusioned and quitting, said, quote, "I was being independent. I had constantly depended on others for a long time, and here I was, doing something by myself." So even though from the outside it seems like a really obvious trap, I think 𝗬𝗏 was the perfect storm of recruiting people who were particularly vulnerable to the promise of financial independence, while also being able to stay home and fulfill their motherly duties. Anyway, things were falling apart, and by 2019, 𝗬𝗏 was the subject of numerous investigations, and the Washington State Attorney General filed a lawsuit against the company under the Anti-Pyramid Promotional Scheme Act, claiming that 𝗬𝗏's marketing and sales activities, misleading income and lifestyle claims, emphasis on recruiting and inventory purchases over emphasis on sales to consumers outside the 𝗬𝗏 organization, and inventory loading practices ensured that the primary business opportunity with 𝗬𝗏 was through recruitment. The lawsuit was set to go to trial in October 2020, but then the pandemic happened, so they eventually settled with the state of Washington for $4.75 million. $4 million will go to people in Washington state who lost money because of their work with 𝗬𝗏, and the $75 million remaining will go to the state of Washington to partially repay the cost of bringing the lawsuit. Yeah, I said partially. This is another reason why pyramid schemes often are able to continue unchecked. It is incredibly hard and expensive for the government to investigate and prosecute a pyramid scheme. So unless there is strong evidence that a company is perpetrating a scheme, many governmental entities are wary of beginning the process. But that might be changing because of changing FTC guidelines and because MLMs have reportedly skyrocketed since the pandemic began. If you think about it, it makes sense that MLMs would be the perfect pandemic enterprise. Work from the comfort of your home with the promise of making tens of thousands of dollars a month. More than ever, during the pandemic, companies were able to prey on the fears and vulnerabilities of people who were unsure about the future of their jobs and careers in the face of widespread layoffs and an uncertain future of pandemic restrictions. People who traditionally participated in the gig economy, like Uber drivers, also gravitated towards MLMs as COVID drove down demand for in-person services. In a recent survey, 60% of surveyed MLMs stated that COVID had been good for business. And the Direct Sales Association, remember that lobbying group, they estimate that the industry grew by 13.9% in 2020 to $40.1 billion in retail sales. And there's no sign of this trend slowing, especially since we appear to be entering a developing recession. Historically, MLMs have fared very well during recessions, with 3 million new MLMs being founded in the wake of the 2007-2008 housing crisis. 𝗬𝗏 continues to operate to this day. Its website truly looks like it was designed by a suburban housewife who just discovered Shopify. And MLMs continue to proliferate. There could be greater regulation and oversight coming in the form of a change to the FTC Business Opportunity Rule, which would require greater disclosures from MLMs to potential sellers. This would hopefully provide some eye-opening information that may deter people from investing their life savings into businesses if the business has to disclose the actual numbers of how much their sellers actually make, as well as the legal actions pending against them. But for now, there's very little by way of federal regulation to curb the predatory practices of the MLM industry. If you're interested in learning more, check out my selected sources linked below. Thanks again to the sponsor of today's video, Atlas VPN. A reminder that you can get your deal of 3 years of Atlas VPN for $1.99 a month by clicking the link in the description below. Thanks, Atlas VPN. If you've made it this far in the video, hi, hello. Throw a little money emoji in the comments so that I know who my people are, okay? I'd also like to invite you to my Patreon community, where we have fun discussions about the law and about life, and you get behind the scenes content and access to things like Leeja's book club. This quarter, we're reading The Cult of the Constitution by Marianne Franks. My Patreon is linked below if you'd like to join. Thank you to my extra special patrons, Old Man Pence, Fork McSpoon, Daniel Taylor, Cyrus Solka, and Brett Piontek. Thank you for joining today. If you liked this video, you'll probably also like this video, all about why Airbnb keeps getting sued, but also isn't losing. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.